US President Donald Trump is ready to discuss the future of Taiwan with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and now it becomes clear why Beijing recently hosted the leader of Taiwan's opposition Kuomintang party. As Bloomberg reports today, Taiwan is very concerned that US President Donald Trump may make concessions regarding the democratically governed island. During the meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, which is scheduled for May 14th to 15th in Beijing, Taipei is working hard to prevent such a scenario, but knowing Donald Trump, there are no guarantees. Moreover, Beijing has previously prepared a perfect image to show that not everything in Taiwan is so clear-cut and that in fact part of the island supports reunification with China. And here, in this context, we need to discuss the visit. The visit of the leader of Taiwan's opposition party, the Kuomintang, to Beijing happened right before Donald Trump's visit to China. My name is Alexi Pichi. Let's discuss this topic together. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to the channel, like this episode, leave any comment under this video, and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Peachy News. The link is in the description of this video. So, on May 14th and 15th, US President Donald will have a meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Beijing. And now in Taiwan there are concerns that their democracy might be harmed by an ally. It has reached the point where Taiwan's Deputy Foreign Minister Francois Wu stated, quote, "What we fear most is that Taiwan will become a topic of negotiations between Xi Jinping and President Trump. We are concerned and must prevent this." It is expected that at the summit, the US and Chinese leaders will discuss, in particular, various business agreements and procurement commitments, trade agreements, and so on. And I would like to remind you that the meeting was originally postponed from the end of March to the beginning of April because of the US and Israel's war with Iran. And Trump then stated that he needed to stay in Washington, although I think he is trying to secure more advantageous positions for himself in the Middle East. Beijing considers democratically governed Taiwan its territory. The island holds a key place on Xi Jinping's list of priorities. And now, during the meeting, the Chinese leader will likely pressure Donald Trump to agree to reconsider the island's status by opposing Taiwan's independence. A verbal confirmation of such a position or official changes in US policy would be a major victory for Xi Jinping. When asked whether the US had given Taipei any guarantees that the island's status would not be reconsidered, Mr. Wu, Taiwan's deputy foreign minister, replied, quote, "You can never be 100% sure of anything. As you can imagine, that means a lot, which worries us most." A White House spokesperson told Bloomberg that Trump expects a positive meeting with Xi Jinping and that the US administration's position on relations with Taiwan, known as the One China policy, remains unchanged. According to this policy, the US maintains official diplomatic relations with Beijing without specifying its position on the legal status of Taiwan. Washington maintains unofficial ties with Taipei and is a key partner of the island and a supplier of weapons. And now, Taiwan's Deputy Foreign Minister Wu stated that Taiwan seeks to broaden shared interests with the US. He named Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing industry and investments in the United States as key reasons for his optimism. Quote, "The more national interests we share, in my opinion, the more confident we can be that we won't end up on the menu." For now, we feel calm, but everything could change. Although Trump usually speaks warmly about Jinping, the US president has a number of advisors who take a tough stance on China. According to Bloomberg sources, there have been contacts between Taipei and Washington, but it is impossible to get assurances from the White House about exactly what will be discussed or agreed upon at the summit in Beijing. Sources also noted that Trump's aides do not know how the meeting will go, do not know what position Trump will take, or what he might do. This is partly the reason for the concern. American officials state that the summit will focus on issues of trade and investment. They want to focus Trump's visit to Beijing on securing better access to critical minerals and rare earth metals, the supply of which China suspended last year by imposing strict export restrictions. Although the supply of metals and minerals picked up after Trump and Xi held a meeting in South Korea last fall, trade volumes still have not returned to the levels that existed before those restrictions were imposed. Another victory for Beijing would be limiting US arms sales to Taiwan. This year, let me remind you, Xi already scored a victory when Trump postponed the delivery of an arms package to Taiwan. This caused concern among some officials in Washington and Taipei, as well as among American lawmakers. However, Bloomberg sources believe that this pause is temporary and the delivery will take place right after Trump's summit with Xi. But it's important to note here that Taiwan's concerns are not unfounded because Beijing was preparing for the Xi Jinping and Trump meeting specifically in the context of Taiwan. Let me remind you, 2 weeks ago, the leader of Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, Chen Li-wen, visited China on what she called a 6-day peace mission. She was personally received by Xi Jinping. A meeting of this level between the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party and the Kuomintang Party of Taiwan took place for the first time in 10 years, and at a time when China has significantly increased military pressure on the island. Beijing stopped official dialogue across the strait after the Democratic Progressive Party came to power in 2016. Citing the administration's refusal to accept the 1992 consensus which was reached between the PRC and the Kuomintang government, stating that both sides recognize one China. In other words, this is the party that in 1992 acknowledged that it is part of China, that Taiwan is part of China, and not a democratically governed island. The current government insists on a Taiwanese identity while China considers the island its territory. By the way, it constantly refers to this consensus with the Kuomintang party and threatens to use military force if independence is declared in Taiwan. Chen Li-wen stated that the purpose of her visit was reconciliation and reducing tensions between the island and the mainland, as well as the desire to demonstrate that dialogue with China can serve as a form of deterrence and that war is not inevitable. For Chen Li-wen herself, this trip to Beijing, of course, had several personal goals. First of all, to strengthen her own political capital within the party with an eye on the presidential elections in Taiwan in 2028. Secondly, to boost the Kuomintang party's standing by demonstrating successful navigation in relations with Beijing. And thirdly, to convince Taiwanese society itself of the need to start a peaceful dialogue with Beijing, while Beijing increases its military activity and raises the level of threats around the island. In response to this visit, China promised Taiwan a bunch of economic deals, the resumption of logistics with the island, the construction of some bridges, the opening of airports, and so on. So, there are a lot of incentives suggesting that if the Kuomintang returns to power in Taiwan, life will get better, we'll join hands and move forward together. But now experts fear that Xi Jinping might use this visit by Chen Li-wen to show Donald Trump that actually Taiwan isn't really that hostile toward Beijing. And that the United States of America shouldn't help the island because supposedly there's no point in it. Like, look, you're helping, you're arming them, but if the Kuomintang party comes to power, we'll be friends again, so why are you helping them? I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation or a paid sponsorship subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support the Alexei Pechi channel. Choose any support format that's convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you give to this channel. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.